It's not guaranteed, but most likely that daily change of character is going to be a 4-hour trend change. So we can see where that dotted line is over here on the 4-hour chart, right, which represents that daily change of character, was actually where we had our 4-hour trend change, right? So that 4-hour confirmed bullish trend change is where we got the daily change of character, okay? And we spoke about this before, but how did we, when we were looking at the 4-hour being within this bearish range here, right? We had the 4-hour breaker structure here. When we got the break of that low there, what do we expect after 4-hour breaker structure? We expect a 4-hour pullback. How can we anticipate that the swing run is over and the 4-hour pullback is kicking in? We get that change of character, right? We take the low and then we take the high, giving us that change of character, pull back in to form that internal high low, right? And then we get minor breaks of structure. But at that point, the 4-hour is still bearish. So we have to kind of run with the assumption, at least just on the 4-hour time frame, that 4-hour lower high will hold, that swing lower high, right? So then we were looking at the changes of character coming back to the downside, right? And we'll talk about that in a little bit more depth at that moment. But when we were anticipating that 4-hour pullback kicking in and we got that 4-hour change of character, what do you think that 4-hour change of character was on the 15-minute chart? Well, this is the 15-minute chart down here. And if we zoom in, right, you can see this dotted line here. I'm just going to tidy it up a little bit. That's where the 4-hour change of character was. But let's quickly draw on our 15-minute trend, right? So we're bearish, right? We come down, we form that low. So that's clearly our swing low there. So let's mark on our 15-minute bearish break of structure. And then we draw that across. Put on my M15 breaker structure there, right? Now, where was the highest point before that low broke? It was this swing high there. So just going to mark that out just so we can see it. All right, so that's our M15 swing high, and then price comes up and then takes that high, making the M15 switch bullish, right? So when we were expecting that 4-hour pullback and we're waiting for that 4-hour change of character, generally, not always, that will be a 15-minute bullish trend change, which happened a little bit higher up, right? So the 4-hour chock was there, but it continued up and it pretty much happened in the same area. So it's not always going to be picture perfect, but it just gives you a rough indication of what you're seeing on one time frame will most likely be happening on the lower or higher time frame, right? Now, that's when you get that 15-minute switching bullish, right, giving us a lot more confirmation that that 4-hour pullback is kicking in. But could we have seen that potentially even earlier? Well, when we got that 15-minute breaker structure to the downside, right, how can we anticipate that the 15-minute pullback's about to kick in? We got a change of character, right? Because if you look at the 15-minute, right, we had that minor low there, draw that across, put that as our 15-minute change of character, and then what happened? It took the low and then it took the high. So there we got the 15-minute change of character, price then pulled back in, right? If I can get the paintbrush to work, right? So we got the pullback in to form that 15-minute internal high low, and then that anticipated the 15-minute pullback, which then turned into a full-on trend change, which then ended up being the 4-hour change of character, right, to initiate that 4-hour pullback, which then ended up leading to a 4-hour trend change, which ended up leading to the daily change of character, right, to initiate that steeper daily pullback, which ended up leading to a daily trend change, right, which then ended up potentially or trying to form that weekly higher low, right? So can you see how it all started from down here on the 15-minute time frame? And of course, if we were to go low on the 1 minute and so on and so forth, you'd have seen that all change first. And all that was trying to lead up to, as you go higher and higher, is just to form that weekly higher low, right? Because we're bullish, we've pulled back down into the discount, and then trying to anticipate where that weekly high low may be forming, right? You can then use all the timeframes together, but obviously the higher you go, right, the more confirmation that you're going to have that actually this is the true weekly swing low. Because if you're looking at, let's tidy this up a little bit and get rid of these lines. If you're looking at the 15-minute chart to tell you when the weekly high low is going to be forming, right, the minute that we break through the EQ and we're within discount prices and you're saying to yourself, okay, the weekly's bullish, I want to try and catch that weekly high low. If you're just sitting on the 15-minute and you're trying to look for every change of character or even bullish trend change, right, it's going to happen a lot, and you're going to keep taking losses and losses or a load of break evens, because yes, you can get in early and you can literally catch potentially what may have been that weekly high low, and you could have got in right at the very bottom, post a nice little MT4 screenshot on Instagram, show off to all your pals or whatnot, but actually you didn't show how many losses you took in the meantime, the amount of grey hairs that you've got trying to catch that low. So whilst it is doable, and of course as we start to introduce more concepts and tools throughout the course, liquidity concepts, supply and demand, etc., that can increase our probability of knowing when to try and do that. But for now, purely just concentrating on market structure, You can see that just waiting for more confirmation, the more confirmation you wait for, the high probability you're going to have of knowing that that weekly high low, or at least a weekly run, is about to kick in. And then you can hold on to trades with a lot more conviction and confidence and a much higher strike rate, right? Because even though we get that change of character down here, you have so much opportunity, right? There is literally no need for fear of missing out, right? To then capture on what ends up being a huge move. And there's just going to be, you can literally just wait for the daily chart, right? Because the daily chart doesn't switch bullish until all the way up here. So you might want to wait for that daily chart to switch bullish to then actually give you a lot more confirmation that the weekly high low is in place. But look, you're still going to get days and days and days of intraday entries to then look to capitalize the rest of that weekly move, right? But all of it, you can see here, happened first on the 15-minute time frame, right? Remember what we were saying about the 4-hour chart at that point, right? We still have to assume that the 4-hour chart is bearish because this is still a 4-hour strong lower high. So even though we're pulling back, when we get that change of character to the downside, we can be looking for shorts to target that weak 4-hour low. But then what happened, remember, we had that minor move, and then we took the low, and then we took the high, and we had that 4-hour change of character again to the upside. What was that 4-hour change of character over here? It was the 15-minute switching bullish again, right? So then at a minimum, we can target this weak 4-hour high, but it ended up changing to that 4-hour trend change, which gave us our daily change of character, right? And then we move higher. But at that point, right, then we're still playing within this bearish daily range, and we have to assume that this daily lower high is going to hold, right? So let me zoom out on the 4-hour chart so we can see how this syncs up a little bit better. So as price is coming up towards this daily lower high, right, and this is kind of a good point to talk about, having a trend bias but not being attached to the outcome either way, letting all of the timeframes give you that confirmation, and being happy to trade in both directions. So you may have a daily bearish bias, right, but you're still happy to look for longs and look for shorts, but you use that trend bias just to manage your expectations potentially of how far to try and push those trades, how far to try and manage them. Okay, so as we come up into this daily lower high, right, people who are not understanding market structure, or you don't have a firm grasp of multi-time frame analysis, right, what are they going to see? They're going to see price come up to this daily lower high. They're going to see this bearish daily candle close. They're going to pretty much see a triple top, right, a 1 2 3, and they go, okay, that's a lot of confirmation, I'm going to try and short. And then what happens? They get absolutely smashed, and then we see that volatile move to the upside. Okay, and it's because they're not understanding where are we in the weekly chart, right? We're in weekly discount prices. The 4-hour has switched bullish, right? Obviously the lower time frames all switch bullish. So when we get into this area and we're expecting that daily lower high to form, right, what happens? The 4-hour never switches bearish, right? We get that move, 4-hour pullback, and then we continue straight up. So this is why, if you want that extra confirmation that the daily lower high is going to form, then drop down to the next time frame, and ideally wait for that 4-hour to switch bearish, right? So on and so forth. And then obviously we have that continued 4-hour bullish trend. So the daily is now bullish at this point. So what do we expect after a daily break of structure? We expect a daily pullback, right? But this is another key point I want to make is, if you're setting your charts, right, and actually the daily break of structure actually happens just there on the 16th of April as it closes above. Now from the 16th of April, if you say to yourself, okay, I've seen a daily bullish break of structure, what do I expect? I expect a daily pullback. And then you just sit on your hands this entire time, right, waiting for that pullback to kick in before you even look to get long, right? You're going to miss out on 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10, almost 2 weeks worth, about a week and a half's worth of potential intraday opportunities to still trade that daily bullish run, right? So you don't have to, but if you are more of an active trader and you are looking at intraday moves, right, you can be aware in the back of your mind that there is a daily break of structure and we're expecting a daily pullback. But that doesn't mean you have to sit in your hands for another 2 or 3 weeks, right, and wait for to the 5th of May all the way from the 16th of April to then look for pro trend longs again, right? You can keep taking longs, but why this knowledge helps you that you're expecting a daily pullback is that you're not trying to swing for the fences and really push this another however many pips, because you're expecting at any point that daily pullback could be kicking in. So what can we use purely just from a market structure viewpoint to tell us that that daily pullback may be kicking in? Well, as you can see, if you look at the minor price action, right, there's minor pullbacks, it stays bullish the whole time. Then we get that change of character here, right? That's the first time there's that sign of weakness on the daily chart where we get that internal lower low, right, on the 30th of April, and we get that change of character. So if I draw on that daily change of character, what most likely do you think that will be on the 4-hour chart? It will most likely, not always, be a 4-hour trend change. In this case it was, right? If we zoom straight in over here where we have the dotted line for the daily change of character, that is where we got that 4-hour bearish trend change, right? So after we had that huge daily move, we then get that 4-hour bearish trend change. Now, if you remember what we spoke about this section of price action back here when we just looked at one time frame, right, in the basic market structure walkthrough, we knew that although the 4-hour switched bearish, because of understanding on the daily chart now that it's just a daily pullback, right, that we can't expect the 4-hour bearish trend to necessarily last that long, right? We can't suddenly go, okay, the 4-hour switched bearish, now I'm going to expect a bearish trend that just lasted as long as that bullish trend there, right, and have a really deep move down here. Why? Well, because at any point it's just a daily pullback, it's just a daily correction, and that daily high low can be kicking in. So this is where multi-time frame analysis really starts to play its part, right? Especially when the weekly's bullish, and at this point we would be anticipating that that would be the weekly high low, and would be then anticipating that this weekly high is going to get run, and we'd be looking for that move there, okay? So when you see that 4-hour bearish trend change, you can't just start swinging for the fences with all your shorts and then wondering why, you know, you took a break even or you're giving all that profit back. Well, that is why, because it's just a daily pullback. Also as well, hopefully as you guys start to do more and more testing with your premium versus discount, you will see, especially on different pairs, right, when we first get that initial trend change, right, because obviously the daily was bearish for quite some time, and then we switch bullish, right, how often does that first pullback after a trend change come all the way down and towards the discount, right? How often do we get a very, very deep pullback after we get that initial trend change, especially when that bullish trend change is with the weekly trend, right? Because then that's a lot of momentum, the weekly and the daily chart, right? And we're expecting that move. So you can use all of that knowledge together that when we get that daily change of character, when the 4-hour switch is bearish, that is not likely to last long. That's probably just going to be a short little correction, a short little retracement to then continue that bullish move. But then obviously, of course, as we go on and we start to get later into that weekly run and we get later into the daily trend, right? And each time the daily breaks a high, right, what's happening? We're struggling, we're retracing straight away. We break the high, we retrace straight away, and then we're kind of struggling to break these minor highs, right? And that's eventually why it then leads to reversal, because you can see the bullish pressure, that demand starting to run out, right? And sellers starting to step in every time price breaks a high. Okay, so let's just draw on the rest of our daily structure. So we get that daily pullback, which is then what was confirmed, right, with the 4-hour trend change. Then how can we start to anticipate where that daily high low is? Remember, it's not always going to come down to the premium, down to the discount if you're bullish. So let me mark that leg on, right? And this is what I mean by premium discount. It's just a tool, right? It's just to help us to increase probability. Now, it's not a strict requirement for me. I don't have to wait for price to move into the discount in order to look for longs. I'm happy to trade in the premium, right? It's not as high probability, but I'm happy to, because otherwise I'm going to miss out on a lot of potential moves, okay? So what can I use to tell me if price isn't in the discount, how potentially that daily high low may be in place? Well, the 4-hour is going to switch bullish, right? And then we can wait for price to come up here and switch bullish again. Or maybe we can anticipate it a little bit earlier and wait for that 4-hour change of character. What will that 4-hour change of characters be on the 15-minute? If I scroll all the way up across, whoops, and we get over there, right, down here. So that was that 4-hour change of character over here, right? What is that in the 15-minute chart? It's the 15-minute switching bullish, right? So hopefully, you can really see how they all interrelate to each other. But let's just try and kind of stick to daily charts now, so we don't get too bogged down on all the price action, because I do want to kind of cover this to where we are currently in the market. So for me, we get that daily break of the high, just miss one, and then another swing high there, right, after that pullback. Now, this isn't the most, the largest of pullbacks, but this is where you kind of, and this will come with experience, you have to read what's relative to the current price action. Because obviously over here, right, we had these big, right, that was a minor pullback, and it's a big swing in price. Then we have the pullback, and it's a big swing in price, and then we have this big leg here. But then you can see the pullbacks are getting shorter. We break the high, and then we get a pullback, right? So that's what's happening here, right? It's smaller pullbacks. You kind of have to read it that we're starting to move quite correctively now. So for me, that is enough of a pullback, as it's relevant to the most recent section of price action. But then here, when we break that daily high, right, I wouldn't classify that as a swing move, even though we do pull back and then we close above that high. If I zoom in a little bit more, right, that for me is not enough to be a swing pullback. That is just a minor pause in price action, right? That would really be the 4-hour swing in price. For me, that is one big daily move up. So at that point, we are playing within this bullish daily range here. Okay, so how can we anticipate that daily pullback? Well, we can look for a daily change of character, which is what we get here. what is that daily change of character going to be? It's a 4-hour trend change, right? And then we get that 4-hour trend change over there.